Welcome in, listeners. This is Margin Mavens, a podcast hosted by Steph and Kayla, where we share our thoughts on all things literature. Today's episode is about Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. Continuing the story of Bree Matthews, the girl who has found herself tied to two ancestral lines, one of Rootcrafters and one of the Order of the Round Table. In this story, she and her friends are literally never given a break. The content for today contains talk of violence and racism, and while these topics should make you uncomfortable, here is a warning nonetheless. Now make sure to grab a snack and a drink. Unless you're driving, then remember 10 and 2 and come hang out with us while we dive in. For all you listeners involved, the following conversation will contain spoilers, so if you have not read Bloodmarked or Legendborn, beware. This entire conversation is full of spoilers.
What'd you think? I want all your thoughts and feelings because this was your first time reading it.
I walked out of Legendborn being a Selwyn girly. Walked out of Bloodmark being a Selwyn girly. It is good to be consistent.
What else?
Man, so we get a lot, right? Very early on the jump. One of the biggest villains of the story is racism.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We get that Bree. We get it in Legendborn from the very beginning when she gets there and people immediately are looking at her and calling her an outsider. But you know that they mean it more than just the fact that she's a once-born. And it doesn't get any better once she is the scion of Arthur.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed in those that are scions showing the racism. Like Victoria?
Yeah. I was like, you mean Tor? I was waiting for you to say the name.
Oh,
it's on site.
My God, it's on site. And it's the fact that even her girlfriend, by the end of it, not jumping ahead, but by the end of it is we knew that we could not trust you.
Yeah. Yep.
And
that should be an eye opener.
Yeah.
Will it be? I don't think so because I don't.
Who knows? Tor. A couple things, right? So we had in Legendborn, we had this guy named Vaughn who was messed up on all degrees. We find out that he got mesmered willingly and basically stepped out of the situation, which I was almost disappointed about it, not because I'll miss him, but because I was kind of hoping there would be some character growth there by the end. Maybe we'll see him again. Doubt it, but maybe.
I know it's going to be 5 books, so I think it's going to be 5 books.
5 books is crazy.
Go, give it to me. Give it to me.
And so Bree, we find out, has basically been put under lock and key by Selwyn out of
Rightfully
just necessity, right? She is, if she dies, literally all of them lose their powers and no one will ever have powers again. And then the demons take over and everything is bad.
It's a big deal.
So while I'm all about the independence and Bree should have more independence, I don't blame Selwyn. There's very few things in this book that I blame Selwyn for. We'll get into one of the things that I think is very obvious that I blame him for, but not in a, oh my God, you're the worst person ever kind of way, and more like a, oh, that's really sad kind of way. She's having a hard time conjuring up her ether. She's having a hard time controlling her root. She's having a hard time.
This is a tough book for Bree.
This is a tough book for all of them.
Yeah.
Literally not a single person in her group catches a break.
No.
Ever. You know,
and just when you think they're going to catch a break, something else happens.
So she's moving towards this right of kings, right? Where and that's kind of supposed to be the save all. She's once I take the right, I take over the order. It is my rule and stuff like that. We find out that, surprise, surprise, there's a lot more politics in the order than...
Yeah, they're not going to let that happen. A black woman lead? No, absolutely not.
And so...
Not these white men.
We find out that the regents, who think of them as, the diplomats of the world, are the ones who have been taking control of the order. They're the ones that make the laws and stuff, and they do not want anybody else in power. And so, first point of betrayal is when they decide to spread the lie that the Davises, which is Nicholas and her father, Jesus Christ, Nicholas and his father,
Man, if Nicholas was a
are
girl, this would be so different. I'm
are
gonna write that fanfic.
have been sequestered, and they
Yes.
are being kept safe for the sake of the lines and all of that. And Selwyn is named traitor.
Yes.
Bree has to deal with this in a very interesting way because in this meeting, she is formally just known as a page. Like, people are not supposed to know that she is a scion of Arthur. And it's kind of painted to her as like no one can know so that you're safe and stuff. But then as we start finding out more, it becomes very
About
obvious
power.
no one can know so that when we do what we want with you, there's less uproar as to why this random page disappeared.
Right.
And Tor sucks. Tor sucks. Oh man, the way that she sucks is crazy. Never seen somebody suck the way that this character sucks. And we know Jackson Hall, right?
Something. Like, yeah, I was gonna say we've read the Bone season series.
She sucks in a way of, I mean, it really does just come down to racism, right? Like, a character can be evil. A character can be evil, and I'll find them interesting. Her characteristic, her trait is literally just the fact that she's a racist.
Yes.
And
which makes her the worst.
And it's the worst. Because I'm like, man, like, you could easily say you have a problem with Bree because she has no control of her powers. And I would understand. Right? But because you've had this beef with Bree since the beginning, it gets worse when she's the scion of Arthur, despite the fact that you just watched her by that point, in your eyes, have control of her powers.
Right.
Like, she sucks.
She sucks so hard.
So we meet the Mage Guard, which is led by Erebus, who, first off, loved that name, was going to name one of my characters in a book that, and now I can. Thank you, Tracy. And he is meant to be the master of all the Merlins.
Yes.
And
he's very interesting.
He's very interesting. He's very, like, I always just thought of him as very fickle throughout the entire book because you never quite know where he lands. Like, he was very reluctant to do certain things, and obviously it makes sense by the end. We're getting there. And we end up meeting Larkin, who is kind of offered up as the potential king's mage for Bree. And she's like, excuse me, I don't want to be oathed to anybody I don't know.
I have Selwyn. Like, why do I need this guy?
Which, fair, but even Selwyn is like,
you need a king's mage.
You need a king's mage, girly. I can't feel when you're in danger.
Yeah, this is a problem.
And so that kind of becomes the force. And so on their way to the right, they get attacked. And Larkin is injured because she accidentally broke his hand. Because she is still learning how to control everything and, you know, has that moment. And so he's wounded, not able to fight to the best. So they're about to be moided. Selwyn shows up, as Selwyn does. And I like that the entire book, he's like, oh, I was bored and just happened to be, like, you know, around. I like that us as the readers are like, he's keeping tabs on you, Bree. This man loves you.
Head over heels.
And so she gets taken into the right. She goes through the ancestral planes, right? Which was a really cool scene because you see both sides. You got to see her walk with her rootcrafting ancestors, and then you also got to see her walk with Arthur. And man, does Arthur suck. But he's a white man from medieval times, so like no one should have been surprised. You know, I was more surprised when he didn't seem like he sucked, and then he just sucks.
It was very much like you read the end of Legendborn, you're like, oh, okay, Arthur's actually pretty cool. And then you get to Bloodmarked, like, no, he's the worst. He's a man. He's a white man.
And so she goes and she's trying to perform the rite, but then she has this moment of, no, I am not swearing to you. Yeah. And she comes out of it and she has been drugged. And so she gets taken to like an institute. And they do this for a couple days. And the worst part, really, of it, not just what's happening to her, but it's the fact that William is with her. And he's literally just brought in to make sure that she is not killed.
Yeah.
In all of their meddling with her brain and all of
Love
that.
William.
And
I love William
I really
so much.
feel for William here because being a King Arthur nerd, right? And knowing, like, I got really emotional just thinking of William for a second. To like a cheesy level, like this is embarrassing. But the fact that like his whole thing, right, is that he wants to be a healer, but not just that, but he needs Arthur to be okay, right? Like he obviously cares and heals all of them.
Right.
Right? But the fact that he has to stand by as like every fiber in his being is like, my king is in danger and he can't help more than just make sure that she's alive.
Yeah.
Is crazy. And the fact that they do that to him is
It's another form of torture. It's another form of keeping them in line.
And it's
the way that the regents want
so
them in
hard.
line.
And so we end up getting a really cool rescue scene led by Alice and her friends, right? Which we love Alice. I don't want to talk about it yet. Don't make that face. And so we find out that there are Merlins and people within the order that are not loyal to the regents, but that they're following the actual mission of the order and they are loyal to the king.
To Arthur, yes.
And that's a breath of fresh air. So she runs into them. They take her to a safe house because they decide that they're going to go and help Nicholas and they're going to track Nicholas down. Because remember, Nicholas is the scion of Lancelot. And so Arthur needs Lancelot.
Yes.
And so they all decide this. They go to a safe house with this guy named Jonas. Jonas ends up being the worst.
Yep.
Wants to kill Bree just for the sake of killing the whole order because he thinks it's better. The order doesn't. His logic was really flawed. Like
his logic was really messed up.
There's villains that their logic makes sense to me. You know, even if I don't agree with it. Like even the regents, I'm like, I understand because they want power. The way that they're doing it makes sense. His end goal was to like stop all of the killing and the dying by getting rid of the order so the order wouldn't die anymore. But it like that wouldn't get rid of their memories. Like they would still know what happened. Right. And they would know then that like these Shadowborn are now coming into the world and they can't stop them. Like dude was flawed, but it makes sense because he had to go through the agony so we get a couple instances throughout this book of an oath being broken, and we kind of see the very violent punishment that it takes on the body, which was kind of cool. It was interesting to see because it's always told as
it's like always this is what could happen,
but you know, it's like a scary bedtime story. Yeah. But we actually see it happening with a couple of them. And the entire time we've got this background problem that Selwyn is away from his king's mage. He's not fulfilling that oath. So they're thinking that he's going more and more demonic. And she's like, he's fine. He's great. He says he's good.
He's not. Narrator. He, in fact, was not good.
Spoiler alert. Very far from fine. And so they go off on their own little mission and they end up at a bar. And we meet Valak.
We meet, hands down, one of my favorite side characters.
Yeah, I love Valak because he very much shows up as like, I'm going to be the big bad guy. Yeah. And then he's a big old softy.
He is just a big old cuddly teddy bear that
can do a lot.
You know, looks like he could kill you, but is actually a cinnamon roll. It's fine.
Yeah. And so we find out a lot, right? We find out that Selwyn has been mesmering Bree so that she couldn't see his actual appearance, so she couldn't clock the fact that he was actually getting worse and that his demonicness was becoming more demonic.
Yeah.
And that leads to a really hard scene with her and Selwyn because by this point they've been getting romantically closer.
Yeah.
While she still is getting romantically closer to Nick on her blood walks. It's messy.
If I don't get like
a throuple,
I'm gonna be infuriated.
It feels like, I don't want to say I'm delusional, but it feels as though it's being hinted because Nick sees, right, and they have a conversation on one of the blood walks, where Selwyn is like looking at Bree and is like, she's beautiful. And he's like, she's always beautiful. And then they have like a really sweet moment, but they're both talking about Bree. It all spells throuple, Your Honor.
Yes.
Like neither one of them, like Selwyn seems to get a little jealous, but that's until he and Bree have their like
but
moment.
Also,
and
that's the best part.
Yeah.
Like, I'll die on that hill.
But he doesn't seem like he wants it to stop. He just is like, because by that point he's not sure of her feelings.
Right.
You know, so it's all very confusing for him and stuff. And so as the story continues, as the story continues, the underlying plot really becomes a matter of Bree is not able to get her powers under control. The machinations of the Order are making it to where she is not meant to succeed.
Right.
You know,
They're
and Arthur keeps and so Arthur keeps saying like, let me take over, I'll teach you. And she's like, no, last time you did that, you were mean to my friends. And because he's a medieval king, like he is not used to having to seek forgiveness or seek for any sort of acceptance or understanding of his decisions. His word was law. Yeah.
Hit him with your car.
And so finally they end up at this place called Volition. And it's so cool. Like you can tell the thought process and the idea and the amount of love and care that goes into this plot point. Was so good. One thing that happens before I jump too far ahead, is Selwyn and Bree manage to get to Nick. And everyone at this point is like edge of their seats. Oh my God, they're going to finally save him and get him out of here.
JK.
Erebus shows up, goes to throw a spear at Nick because we find out that the Order wants to kill Nick so that they can have a second scion of Lancelot ready. One that is ready to work with them and not against them.
Correct.
And Nick's father takes the spear for him.
Yes.
Which this is going to sound really messed up.
No, say it.
I'm really tired of crappy parents doing like a moment of self-sacrifice for their kid and having it be like, oh my God, he did it for their kid, you know? Like,
no, he did it for power.
Yeah, he did it so that his line could continue, you know? Like he did it so his son could be in power. And this is a reminder to all of you listeners, I'm a Snape hater day one.
Yes.
So
but also
that explains a lot of my lack of love for redemption arcs that are not.
But it's also like you get these arcs where like these crappy parents like get to escape their consequences for years worth of decisions by sacrificing their lives.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating because it's that does not make you a good parent.
Yeah. And then it makes it to where Nick ends up in the situation he's in, where he kills a guy in cold blood. Really gruesomely too. Just straight up takes his head off, which is wild. And so he decides that he's not going with them.
Yeah. He makes the decision.
Yeah. Which really, once I remember they're all babies, a lot of their decisions start making a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And they feel older as characters because of what they're going through, the decisions they're making and stuff like that. But Bree is 16 years old.
Bree is still a baby.
Nick is 17 years old.
I will die on that hill.
And Selwyn is 18 years old.
Protected at all costs.
And they're all in a tough spot. And as the story continues, like I said, they get to Volition. It's a really cool setup. Bree starts understanding more about her root in terms of like, there is a bigger foe that's been coming after them. It has been a hunter. We find that she has been bloodmarked because Vera made a decision, which I'm not saying I blame Vera.
No.
But man, is she unhelpful. Like, she made choices to survive and make sure her family survived. And I understand. I can never understand the feelings she was going through, the experiences she was in. Not undermining the things she had to do to survive in the slightest. Homegirl could have been a little nicer to Bree at any point. and still got her point across, like, and so that's incredibly difficult. Bree and Selwyn share a smooch.
They do smoochy.
And they have the conversation that I had been waiting for since Legendborn, where she's like, hey, I know what that word means now. It could mean darling. It can mean sweetheart. It can mean love. Which one did you mean? And he goes, that's a trick question because I meant all of them. And it's so sweet. So sweet.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite scenes in this book is actually in the scene where they're finding Nick and they do the explosion and Bree gets really, really hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out that one, Valak is a sweetheart and runs himself to go get William and bring him back.
Yes.
But also that for 3 hours, Selwyn used literal ether.
Yes.
To keep her body together.
Yes.
And not just like, oh, he put like a big Band-Aid around it. No, he created microscopic constructs out of ether and held them together for 3 hours.
By sheer freaking will, people.
Yeah, and then the moment he saw William, he passed out.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. Is it though?
No, because I understand the depths of his love for her. But like, man, like these kids need a break.
They just need to be kids.
They just need to be kids.
I need Bree to have a happily ever after.
Tracy Deonn, listen.
Yeah, please give Bree a happily ever after.
And so Bloodmarked is incredibly complicated. It comes to a point where there's the mage card, there's a lot of lore drop. Read the book. It'll explain things better than we ever could.
Correct.
And their evolution, coming back from the little smoochy smooch, and the mage guard shows up and they're trying to get inside. Mm-hmm. And basically they have Patricia, which is Bree's therapist. And they basically are like
fellow Rootcrafter.
Yeah.
Because we can't forget that.
They basically say like, you come out, she goes in, all good. And Bree ends up talking to Arthur and is like, look into my life right now, not my memories, what's going on right now. And he does. And he was like, okay, I can best them, which confidence is cool.
Confidence of a white man. I would love to have that.
Yeah. Bottle that thing up and make it a perfume, make it an essential oil.
Yeah.
And so he takes over Bree's body with her consent, goes, fights all of them off.
Mm-hmm.
Alice gets brutally injured because she accidentally throws her against the van, not realizing that it's Alice.
Mm-hmm.
So Alice, by the end of this book, is in a coma, and William is freaking out. Poor William, man. Because he's like, I had to throw a lot of ether into her.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know if that's going to be okay.
Right.
I sort of think that she'll be fine because of the same thing that Bree did that got her mesmer back or helped her from the mesmer. I think she'll be fine. There's no way we lose Alice. I refuse to believe. But then Arthur, in true white man fashion, decides
fashion.
He is not giving Bree back her body.
Mm-hmm.
And instead is taking over so that he can deal with the table, right? He's like, you guys are running chaotically around.
Mm-hmm.
I need to step in, get my table together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so in this scene, a lot of stuff happens. We find out Erebus is actually the Shadow King, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, who bloodmarked Bree.
Literally, name is Erebus, like...
Yeah.
The points were pointing, and so when he goes back to the compound and he runs into the rest of his table and, stuff like, or as much of the table as can be pulled together, the regents find out things are not working out well because news has gone on that William and Bree were taken. Selwyn has been jailed without trial. The Davises were not sequestered by the regents. all of these things start happening. So they get back, and the scene that comes from this is super cool because it's our first glimpse of a majority of the table assembled fighting together. Because even though that they are the mage guard and they're highly trained, they're outnumbered and they're outpowered because it's the whole table and 4 Morgans who the only point of feeling sympathy towards Arthur is when he finds out kind of the destiny or the fate of his sister, because obviously he didn't find out what had happened to Morgan because it wasn't, like, I guess in this lore, his decision. So when he looks through his log of Bree's knowledge of his sister, and he's like, the order called my sister a traitor, like, I'll fix it. And they don't want to listen to him, which, like, fair. And Bree ends up denouncing her role as scion of Arthur, which I don't know. I don't know what that means, I think is what it comes down to. I don't know what that means in terms of, like...
It's more of a symbolic thing.
Yeah. I was like, I think she still has the power because she was able to reforge Excalibur. She still is going to have that connection. She decides also to pull I don't know if you guys will understand this reference, but she kind of pulls a Korra in the fact that she burns her ancestral streams because she decides that she has to make her path. She has to forge her own power and
without being influenced by either lineage.
Yeah. And so she does that, which, like, we'll see how that plays out, you know? Right. I think enough media has happened where I don't know if it'll play out well, but I understand the sentiment. She's a 16-year-old girl who both sides want her to be a very specific way. And she has not just been able to really, like, feel the power as her own. It's always been, this is the root from your ancestors, or this is Arthur's ether. You know, it has never been Bree's power.
Been just Bree.
Arthur throws her in Camelot, which is his dreamscape that he was living in for years, right? Which makes a lot of sense as to why, like, 1, Arthur's a white man from the medieval ages. We've talked about this. But 2, he's never really been called that often. And when he is, it's immediately to go into this war.
Right.
And then he's just kind of shoved back in, you know? So, like, dude goes a little kooky.
Yeah.
Because he's dealing with the same plot, the same setting. And so when she's in there, we end up seeing a really cool depiction of Merlin. She ends up fighting Merlin.
Yes.
We see the connection that Merlin was able to change into an owl. Selwyn is able to change into an owl. I like the parallels. It's cool. Then Nick and Selwyn end up blood walking to get Bree out of there.
Yes.
Selwyn sacrifices his humanity to get her out. And then in the end, she makes a bargain with Erebus.
Yep.
Basically saying, I will work with you, train with you, learn with you. Get Selwyn to his mom, because if there is a chance to reverse it or help his demonness, she'll know it. And that is where Bloodmarked ends.
Yeah. And you don't have to wait.
I don't. I just have to wait till it gets here.
Yeah.
It's already shipped.
Wait months for Oathbound.
Already shipped.
I had to wait months.
I liked it. I like Legendborn more. I think Legendborn is a killer debut of this series. I think the magic of Legendborn is unparalleled.
Correct.
Bloodmarked, I think, was fantastic. I think I gave it a 4.5. I think the only reason I didn't give it a 5 was, like, vibes. Like, I couldn't put it into words. I think a lot of lore.
There is a lot of lore.
I felt like I needed a murder board after, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of lore happening. And there's a lot of, like, political intrigue, and then you've got, like, the teenage stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like sometimes it feels very, like, you know, like sometimes it feels very oil and watery.
Yeah.
Where, like, there's a lot going on.
It's my favorite so far. We'll see if Oathbound.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I liked all the lore that it gave me. But also, I think it really does come down to like me being a King Arthur nerd.
Yeah.
Legendborn, I think, is like they said in Bloodmarked. Like Legendborn is the like romanticizing of the legends and what they're standing for.
Right.
Bloodmarked is when reality hits.
Right.
Right. And so I like the idea of the Order of the Round Table. I like the idea of, you know, these scions and stuff. You've never seen the Disney original movie, and I'm going to make you watch it. We'll get there. Don't worry about it, listeners. Yeah, I really liked it. I think
me sitting here like
really
I
fun.
definitely watched The Sword in the Stone. It's one of my favorites.
No. It's a live action.
Possibly.
It's a live action movie that came out in like 2010 called Avalon High.
For context, dear listeners, in 2010, I was giving birth and raising my first child.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're going to watch that maybe today, and you'll see why my love for King Arthur goes so far. I think Oathbound is one, we're obviously going to find out something about Selwyn's mom.
I hope so.
I want to see more of the Morgans, so I'm glad that we got to see them in this one. I want to see how it plays out that she like renounced the Scion of Arthur thing. I want to see how that plays out. Erebus, I don't think is the worst ever. He seems to have a soft spot for Selwyn, and he seems to have a soft spot for Bree. And I know he has a soft spot for Bree, just like you would any battery, because you want it to charge fully before you get to use it. I get it. I understand. Bree also understands. So at least he's being forefront about the fact that his end goal is taking her power.
Yeah.
You know, everyone else is kind of just lying to her.
Yeah.
I want William
needs to find a happy ever after too.
Yeah, William and Larkin for sure.
Oh yeah.
I want to know more about Nick and like his little side quest that he seems to be going on, where he wants to figure out a way to get rid of the Order without getting rid of the Order because he doesn't want to kill Bree, you know? I think William is going to have to come to terms with the fact that he is both healer and warrior. Because we see that a lot in this one, because this is the first time we really saw him have to like use his strength, and he had to like torture that demon and all of those things. I think for his mental sake, he needs to be able to work through it so he can comfortably do both.
Yeah.
I need Tor to get smacked up.
I truly need Tor.
I need her to get a stern talking to.
I need her to get thrown into a pit of Legos.
Barefoot,
like naked, just mess her up all the way around.
Yeah, I think. I think I need the rest of the table to be more involved in this, because obviously, like William, I think is like 11th or 10th or somewhere like down there, right? I need the ones that are like supposed to be higher ranked to start kind of getting their stuff together and getting more involved.
Get in line, please. Let's go.
I need these regents to be taken down.
They should be thrown into a pit of
fire.
I was going to say needles.
Sure. Yeah. Put them into a stack of hay. Tell them there's a needle, and never put a needle in there. Yeah. That's what we need. I also just need Tracy Deonn to come on the podcast, if I'm being fully honest. I need that. I've got questions. I would not be
opposed, obviously. Yeah. Love Tracy Deonn. Huge fan of Legendborn series.
Yeah.
But I definitely just need Tracy. I just need you to finish the book.
Yeah. I just need you to keep reading. Keep writing. Keep reading.
I need the listeners to buy the book and support the book.
Support the book because
more books.
Because that's how it works. People there's so many people, and like myself included for some series and stuff, but they don't pick up the books or read the books until they're finished. In order for an author to be able to finish their series,
you need to buy the series.
They need people to buy the books.
Listen,
they need
I
the
get
money.
I get it.
Binging is a disease.
Binging is the new thing. I get it. All right. But like, I'm going to need y'all to throw it back to when I was young and I didn't have the ability to wait until a series was finished. Like, come on. Like, get on it. Let's
Show
go.
the patience. Yeah.
Be patient. Buy the book. Even if you don't want to read it until it's done, buy the damn book.
Mm-hmm.
Buy it.
Buy the book. But this episode will be coming out a day before Oathbound is officially released. We hope that you are caught up and you enjoy Oathbound. We will be reading it immediately.
I will be going to a book signing.
Yeah, Kayla's going to be able to meet Tracy.
I'm unwell. I'm so excited.
That's crazy.
I'm so excited. Wild. I've been yelling about this series since the first time I picked up Legendborn. So like,
yeah,
wild.
I get my students to read the book. It's great. But anyways, thank you guys for listening and hanging out with us today. If you have not already, consider following us on Instagram at Margin Mavens. And for those interested in the camera-on version of our episodes, you can get those by subscribing to our Patreon. And as always, remember you are loved and that we appreciate you.